of impropriety. One important riwayah, Imam al-Bukhari or one of the other imams came to travel to take a hadith from one of the shuyukh. And when he entered upon the city, he asked, where is the shaykh? And they said, he's over there, he's in the stable. And he's trying to bring his animals into the stable to lock them up before he comes to the masjid. So the young talib, he went to see the shaykh, and he noticed that the shaykh was trying to bring his horse in, or an animal into the stable, but it was refusing. So he went like this, pretending he's got food, and he doesn't have food, and he said, and the horse started coming, and when it came, he held the reins and didn't give it food. So the imam turned away and didn't take his hadith. Because if you lie to an animal, wallahi, they were serious about the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Right? The great imams, if you were sitting in a session such as we are in Bukhara, and you're sitting at the back, and you were sitting in a session with, Imam al-Bukhari or others, there would be someone who would write the names of those who fell asleep, or those who went out to make wudu. Like just say you went out to make wudu and you came back and a hadith was reported. Don't say, oh no, I was there. No, but this hadith, you weren't there for it. So this particular hadith, someone would make note, don't report it from Shaykhna al-Bukhari, because you were not present in that time, in that session. It was a serious level of trust that is a protection to them. And this will become clear today and tomorrow, inshallah. The da'if hadith that we're saying is mardud, rejected, turned back, is one where is a question of a person's piety. Their conduct as a Muslim is questionable, and there is a lapse in their memory. So one Rawi, for example, that is known, he was a chief justice in Egypt, in Alexandria. Ibn Hayya, he was a chief justice. But he used to have a poor memory, so whenever he narrated hadith, he would narrate it from his books. But then there occurred the famous fire, the Alexandria library fire. It's a famous historical moment where part of his library that contained all these hadith of the Prophet ﷺ burned down. So now when he would come to narrate hadith, he didn't have what? So he became from a person whose hadith was accepted to a person whose hadith was rejected. So when you would say in a sanad, in the chain of narration, he's in it, they would ask you, before the fire or after? You say, after the fire. I'm sorry, his hadith is da'if, even though he was an imam, a justice, qadi within Egypt, right? Then there are also the hadith that are mawdu', untruthful narrations, fabrications upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. We've spoken about hadith as a revelation, so page 13, we're going to skip through a little bit, inshallah, and you can go back to that bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. The concept of a mutawatir and an ahad hadith, there's a little diagram there about mutawatir, meaning its wording as well as its meaning. So there is importance that we speak not just about the narration, there's many people, but it's also, there is mutawatir in terms of its meaning. One example of this is there's a hadith that is ahad. That hadith we just said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, is narrated by Abu Hafs Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu ardah, the great Khalifa, Amir al-Mu'mineen, the first Amir al-Mu'mineen. After Abu Bakr was referred to as Khalifa Rasulillah, the one who took position of authority after the Prophet. Then when Umar radiallahu anhu, he no longer was called the Khalifa, he was referred to as Al-Amir, because on his mimbar he said, Antumul mu'minun wa ana amirukum. You are the believers and I have been given the duty to be your Amir. So from then on it became Amirul Mu'mineen, the one who is there to serve the believers and to lead them towards Allah. Ahad hadith are hadith that are mashhur, aziz and gharib, that we have spoken of previously very quickly. We're going to pause our discussion. As we said, we want to end at around 6:30, 6:35, inshallah. Forgive me, I've gone about 2 minutes over time. And we'll continue the second part and we will continue with the study. But I did not want to end without taking one hadith from the kitab of Al-Ruqa'iq, the heart softeners, and a hadith from Ad-Da'awat. And we said that these are the two chapters that we will study. Yesterday we studied the first hadith of the bab of the chapter. This is an interesting word as well. When the ulama, they speak about chapter, it's not called chapter, it's called bab. It's called gateway. because you have to go from one gate to the next, to the next, to the next. It's like you're entering into one room and you say, oh, mashallah, there's a bigger room over there. There's a bigger expanse. So you go from one door. So bab is like a door, gateway, to another door, to another door, to another door. It's an unending pursuit of your knowledge. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us clarity. Allahumma ameen. Those of you who have your app or have downloaded the app, you can turn to this particular hadith. I will just narrate to you one of the dua of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And in this chapter, as we said, is the methodology of Imam al-Bukhari. He reports verses of the Quran and then a hadith. So this is the Imam al-Bukhari. He begins by saying, وَقَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى. From the statements of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's a verse from the Quran before he introduces, as an introduction to the chapter. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, استغفروا ربكم إنه كان غفارا يرسل السماء عليكم مضرارا ويمددكم بأموال وبنين ويجعل لكم جنات ويجعل لكم أنهارا. That this is from Surah Nuh, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, make your istighfar to Allah. Nuh would command his people, استغفروا ربكم. Here are the benefits. It will open the heavens upon you. They were people who were living in drought. That's why they said, where is this boat going to take you? There's no water, there's nothing here. يُرْسِلِ السَّمَاءَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِدْرَارًا وَيُمْدِدْكُمْ. The strength will be granted to you from Allah. بِأَمْوَالٍ وَبَنِينٍ, in wealth and children. وَيَجْعَلْ لَكُمْ جَنَّاتٍ. In this desert that you're in will become gardens of delight. وَيَجْعَلْ لَكُمْ أَنْهَارًا. And you will find rivers of blessing flowing upon you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا فَعَلُوا فَاحِشَةً أَوْ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ ذَكَرُوا اللَّهَ, from Surah Al Imran. And those who, whenever they commit, may Allah protect us from this fahisha, meaning an open, vulgar, major sin, أَوْ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ, or wrong their own selves. Part of it is you have an inequity between you and Allah that doesn't involve other people. You have done something that is private between you and Allah. ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ ذَكَرُوا اللَّهَ, they remember Allah. And therefore Imam al-Bukhari uses these two verses as being important. Istighfar has a material blessing. It will change your financial situation. It will change your austerity. It will change the difficulties you're dealing with in life. But also second, it will be something that expunges your sins on the day of judgment. So he gives you the physical benefit, the tangible benefits in the dunya, because as Mawlana Ibrahim Bam said, we want everything for free. We want to upsell, mashallah. So Imam al-Bukhari says, okay, here's your dunya, istaghfiru rabbakum, you will get this. Allah tells you this. But also don't forget, it's also for the akhirah. Right? It's for the akhirah. So the fiqh of Imam al-Bukhari becomes clear in the two verses. Although Surah Nuh is after the revelation of Al Imran, he doesn't make it chronological. He puts it in that way because your mindset is you want the dunya first. And then you will seek the akhirah later. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us protection.